Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Just Sports with John. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Major League Baseball. And what I'm going to focus on is Major League Baseball's kind of problem, if you will, the sinking of Major League Baseball. And this is coming from somebody so you guys understand that baseball was my first sport. It was considered, to be the American sport, which we'll get to later about that. But I pretty much grew up in that culture. I grew up in the South. I grew up baseball was the big thing. I grew up in a state that at the time when I was a kid didn't have really any pro sports. We didn't have NBA, we didn't have a football team, NFL. We didn't have pro soccer, and now the city I come from, Nashville, has pro soccer, has NFL team. We have Memphis Grizzlies, um, and we still don't have a baseball team professionally. Now I know the Nashville Sounds are there, minor league team, but you know, it's kind of amazing that that was still my first sport. It just shows you how much back then in the 80s and 90s that, that was so much of the American culture and what people expected you to play in basically. And it's what I did. But as I grew up, I got out of it, and a lot of it was due to a lot of factors. And some of those factors are like, higher prices for concessions, higher prices for equipment, training, all those kind of things I think are very impactful. I think also too, the games just seem a lot longer. It seemed like baseball, not just like as a kid or whatever, but just watching on TV with Major League Baseball. I mean, it seemed like games are like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and now it's well over 3 hours for a game. I mean, and you go extra innings and stuff. It's ridiculous. It's crazy, and it's in this day and age, people don't want to watch something that goes that long. I mean, even overtime games, I think people it gets hard to keep on the TV, especially if you got to work the next morning or whatever. So I think baseball has a huge problem with that. Contracts, players' monies, how much they play, what all they do. It seems like you have DHs that can make way more than other people and barely come in and hit. I don't know what the deal is with the pitchers anymore. There's so many pitchers on a team, and the amount they get paid just to come in for what, one inning, couple batters, it's insane. It's ridiculous. So I think it becomes very hard to follow, unless you're just a major fan of it, because the average fan just can't keep up with all that stuff. I think there was a game at the beginning of this season, where one of the pitchers like basically had a no hitter. He was already up in his pitch count, but they just outright pulled him. Didn't even give him the shot to do it. I mean, it used to be that pitcher would get a shutout, whatever, and they would give him the next couple innings to see, and if his pitch just started going off, and guys started hitting off him a whole lot, then they would pull him. But now it's almost like, here's your count. You got one, two more pitches, and it's over. And it's just crazy with that. And I just don't think, with them losing ticket sales, gate attendance, whatever, going down, I'm pretty certain that a lot of the metrics as far as TV goes has gone down a little bit for them as well too. Kind of probably depends upon the season a bit. I'm sure they get more viewers when NFL and NBA are over and done with, but they're also competing against that, like in September through October, which is ridiculous. Like, end it in September when not much is going on. I've never understood why baseball has to have so many games. I think that's another really down factor of it. But um, I think in terms of like if we're looking at changing the game, getting people back into it, I think Major League Baseball needs to do a better job of targeting kids, targeting families, especially with the summer games that don't seem to mean a whole lot in the very beginning, in the first 50 games, maybe first 20 for sure. um, I think also, bringing concession prices down at least once a month or so would really help. Maybe having certain family discount friend things going on where, if you had bigger groups, or, you were consistent, going to games every week or whatever, um, stuff like that. I think really getting into youth initiatives, um, inner city stuff like that would help too. And the whole reduction of the time of the game too, and I think reduction of the schedule as well too would be a big factor. But honestly, I think the downside of all this is I just don't think Major League Baseball is America's game anymore. I think probably the NBA is becoming that. We can I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in another video, but the NBA is doing a much better job of globally or internationally and getting people involved in that. They, expanding out in the world just as much as baseball had, like with Japan and Australia and whatnot. But I think, basketball being a quicker game, a more exciting game, I just don't think baseball is really going to be America's game anymore. But what I think it can be is it can be that game that sort of takes you away from the everyday life. That's one of the things that baseball's always had is it sort of has this atmosphere that's like you're at the game. When people used to talk about going to the game, they were talking about baseball. They were talking about how it would take you away from all the stuff that you had going on in your life. It was an escape. I get a little emotional because, like I said, it's my first sport. So for me, that's exactly what it was. Even as a kid, it take me away from the game, or excuse me, take me away from life. Because I was going to play a game, and even if you're watching the stands, it was called the national pastime for a reason. It was, you just pass the time, right? You just go there, pass the time, and the time doesn't have to be over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Let's get it back to two, get it back to 2.5. I would like to see baseball make a comeback and really focus in on some things to make it better, but it's a really hard sport now for me to get into, and hopefully someday we'll get it right again. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave your comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave your comments about what you think about baseball, especially if you watch baseball now. I'd like to hear from you, and let me know what you think. Take care. Bye.